fitness throughout our rants today. So let's go ahead and intro. I am thrilled to have Sports and Fitness Rants joining me today. And you're a New Yorker, so it was hard for me not to think about you watching the Philly New York series. So first thing I want to say is how nice it is to have LeBron out so that I can actually focus on people who deserve the attention. I mean, it's my fault that I am looking at LeBron. I get that. But man, these players deserve to be recognized. And with New York, prior to, I guess, this last season, when I started knowing the name Jalen Brunson, etc., the name I probably knew the best was Julius Randle, who wasn't even playing. And then Hart, my God, look at Hart. So what do you think of these guys? Like, did they dig themselves out of obscurity and earn their way into the spotlight? I mean, I feel like their path is different than some of these divas who were granted this status ahead of time.
Yeah, well, no. First off, let me say, man, I am completely humbled to be with my man AOH, to be here with you, man. Once again, I am honored to be a guest here. And absolutely, you guys know me out there, man. Sports and Fitness Rants. And once again, yes, the New York Knicks absolutely have once again earned the respect of the New Yorkers because of the way they're playing. They're playing as a team with a never die attitude. There were plenty of times during that game last night where the New York Knicks could have gave up. They could have lost that game. Things could have went astray. But somehow, some way, they stuck together. They held it together, and they was able to win the game. Guys like Josh Hart, man. Shout out to Josh Hart, man. This man has stepped up. This dude's out there getting 14, 15 rebounds a game. He's out there out-rebounding Joel Embiid, for crying out loud. I mean, the man was sensational as far as effort goes. He reminds me of a young John Starks out there. My man John Starks representing all the New Yorkers. We all know how John Starks was out there representing. And so for me, someone like Josh Hart was out there doing his thing. And yes, Jalen Brunson's been sensational. The 40-point games in the playoffs, the first New York Knicks to do this. Not even Carmelo Anthony, Patrick Ewing, some of the other all-time greats, the Wall Clyde Frazier, some of these other players, man, have done these kinds of things in the postseason. So Jalen Brunson's been sensational. And yes, I think the New York Knicks, listen, I told the people out there, man, I don't want to get too crazy with the New York Knicks because I feel like I jinx them sometimes. But yes, absolutely, man. Like I said, I'm completely I'm shocked, I'm blown away, and they have earned it.
Will they be better with Randle, or should they not mess what's not broken?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I'll be completely honest, man, to all the New York fans out there, man. I'm not a Julius Randle fan. And for me, I felt like Julius Randle was kind of holding the Knicks back. And I felt like they should have traded Julius Randle a long time ago. Now, that's just me. Now, if Julius Randle is willing to take a back seat to a Jalen Brunson, to even an OG Anunoby, if he's able to do these kinds of things, maybe be that third guy, play the defense and rebound the basketball and be a true big man, then he can definitely help the New York Knicks, I believe.
Yeah, it seems like nobody's willing to take a back seat these days once they've got that idea in their head that they're not that person.
That's the problem right now. Everybody wants to get paid the money. Everybody wants to be the superstar. But then when it's time to give out the blame, ain't nobody around to get the blame. No, nobody wants to get the superstar blame, man. So we know how it goes.
And they look like they're in shape. They look like they're just trying harder. It's not about stacking the team. They are living proof about just trying harder.
Yeah, the DiVincenzo's of the world, the Mitchell Robinsons, the Isaiah Hartensteins, the other guys out there on the court. That's kind of like New York, man. New York is known for being a tough city, man. The city that never sleeps, man. It's one of those cold cities, man, New York City. But they also respect the blue-collar work ethic, man. That's what it's all about out there. So the New York Knicks have been doing that. They've been showing that out there. That's what, when I was growing up during the 80s and the 90s, the New York Knicks of the 90s, to me, that was the last great New York Knicks run, was the New York Knicks of the 90s. No, they never won a championship, none of those things. We understand that. But the New York Knicks were a formidable team for many, many seasons. It just so happened that they played in the same time as the great Michael Jordan and Patrick Ewing. All those guys, we respect them because they showed up every day and they gave it their all, man. But these Knicks have a chance to do that. This was the first time, I believe, in over 20 seasons, I want to say, that the New York Knicks have made to the second round in consecutive seasons. So when you think about that, that shows you how bad the Knicks have been for so long. It's been essentially since the 90s.
It's been a very, very long time. And on that live cast when we were on a darts show, I mentioned like, what is LeBron James talking about when he tries to say that it's his favorite place to play? Why? Why? They've been shit for 2 decades or more. Why?
That's why it's been his favorite place to play, because they haven't been that good. He wouldn't be saying that if he was playing against the 90s Knicks and he was out there getting clobbered by Charles Oakley and Anthony Mason, Xavier McDaniel, these guys.
Yeah, that's where LeBron's career would have been ended.
Yeah, he don't know about the New York Knicks.
So, how long has that head coach been there?
Thibodeau, he's been there for what? I want to say at least 4 or 5 seasons now. I want to say maybe even longer than that, 6 seasons.
And how long has Brunson been there?
Brunson, this is only his second season, Brunson.
Well, of course, what I'm getting at is Darvin Ham being fired. And, you know, unfortunately, I listen to some of these idiots like Nick Wright and etc. And everybody just wants LeBron James to have absolutely everything, the fully loaded deck. They're like, well, LeBron James didn't have Eric Spoelstra and LeBron didn't have Ty Lue. They're like saying, oh, let's go and get the best of the best coaches. People understand that you don't always have the best of the best of the best of everything. And why does a GOAT have to have the best of the best of the best of everything? And on top of that, and then I'll let you go, how do you even know that that person was the best of the best unless you give them a chance to develop, unless you give them a chance to have a rapport with that team? Because Phil Jackson didn't win at all right when he came in. Phil Jackson got as far as Doug Collins did the year before. They were facing that damn Detroit Pistons team, and then they brought in Phil Jackson. What if they'd acted the way that they make the Lakers front office act and be like, well, you know, Phil Jackson couldn't get it done for LeBron James, and he's gone, and you start all over again. And he's not the only example. You know, this happened a lot. A lot of teams used to have to, you had to earn your way there. You had to go through a couple of tough seasons. I think people forgot that it's totally acceptable to have to lose for a while before you win. Anyway, go.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. Listen, this is what we're talking about. When we talk about LeBron James and we're talking about making the people around you better, it's not only the players that you play with, it's also the coaches that coach you, right? Because being coachable is an actual thing, an asset to being a player, being a great player. All the all-time great players are coachable. This is what people forget. When we talk about players back in the day going to college for several seasons, this is what they learn: being coachable, playing in a team system, being team oriented, and understanding how to win, and understanding that winning is the main focus, not what you're doing individually. Everything will come off of the winning. It must be the winning first. So understanding these things, this is where we can differentiate between a Michael Jordan and a LeBron James when they talk about the coaching. Look at all the coaches LeBron James has been through, and we would often point to LeBron James being the common denominator in these problems here. Guys saying that they're not good enough, things of that nature. You talked about Phil Jackson. When we think about Phil Jackson, early on in the career of a Michael Jordan, people often forget that Phil Jackson was never coming from a head coaching position in the NBA where he had won a previous championship or was in the playoffs consecutive seasons, and now he just signed a free agent deal to the Bulls and he was going to lead them to the promised land with all this experience. That's not the case. It's similar to the situation with a Scottie Pippen. People make it as if Scottie Pippen came from a winning organization and he was a finals MVP and then came to the Bulls and was like, hey, Michael Jordan, I'm going to help you out. I'm Scottie Pippen. I'm going to help you out. That's never happens. So when we think about that, what does that show you? That, like you said, the first year they got there, they got bounced in the same point that they got to the year before. And some people will argue that the Bulls were ascending before Phil Jackson got there. So all he essentially did was hitch his anchor or his star to Michael Jordan. They were already going up. They were never going down. And then all of a sudden, Phil Jackson came and lifted them up. Michael Jordan being coachable, raising Phil Jackson up. So now when we think about Phil Jackson, we think about one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest coach in NBA's history. Meanwhile, all the coaches that LeBron James has played for, you remember them as less than, as also rans, as guys that weren't that great. When Michael Jordan would have lifted these guys up if he was coachable for a Mike Brown, for example, who's won 2 Coach of the Year awards in his career. So that would lead you to believe that he's an actual quality coach. He knows what he's doing just a little bit. He won 2 Coach of the Year awards, but LeBron James couldn't elevate him to the Phil Jackson type status, just like an Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have I heard that Eric Spoelstra should be coach of the year or is the best coach in the NBA? And Ty Lue is constantly being complimented. And yet you have, at the exact same time, which is what's crazy, this narrative that LeBron had to play for these nobody coaches. Boy, they can't be both. They can't be both. And if LeBron James had had his way, if Miami's front office had done whatever LeBron wanted the way LA's does, Spoelstra would have been gone, and they would have been starting over with another coach that they scapegoated, and LeBron wouldn't even have the rings that the rest of his teammates got for him.
Exactly. And Eric Spoelstra, every season Eric Spoelstra coaches, he exposes this. Eric Spoelstra has been a victim of his own success. I was talking to somebody in the comment section of one of my videos that I talked about Eric Spoelstra, and they appreciated me shouting out Eric Spoelstra and his coaching prowess because he doesn't get talked about in a good perspective oftentimes by the LeBron James fans and the media. They try to make it seem as if Eric Spoelstra is so-so. But I talked about Eric Spoelstra being a victim of his own success because he's such a good coach, the Miami Heat are always contenders. They're always formidable. So every season they finish in the playoffs, right? So it negates them from getting a good pick every season by finishing the bottom. Look at the San Antonios, for example, this season. They had the #1 draft pick, Victor Wembanyama, but somehow, some way, they still finished with the worst record or one of the worst records in the NBA. Some people would say it was on purpose or whatever the case may be, but there's Greg Popovich losing all of these games. Eric Spoelstra has never lost 15 or won 15 games in a season, 20 games in a season. This man is always coaching up lesser talent. You point to the coach who's done more with less as a coach over the last 10 seasons. You talk to me about anyone else who's done more with less. This man's went to 2 NBA finals. His best player is Jimmy Butler. Emo Jimmy Butler, who's out there getting his hair straightened out. And I mean, my goodness, that was his best player. And Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, some of these other players they went to the NBA finals with. And a lot of those guys, Goran Dragic, some of these other guys, they were hurt during those finals. But he made to go 2 NBA finals, beating teams like the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics that had 10 times way more talent than the Miami Heat did. But somehow, some way, Eric Spoelstra gets these guys to the NBA finals and keeps them contenders. But LeBron James never played for a good coach.
Less is more is exactly what I think of, or getting more out of less is exactly what I think of when I think about Spoelstra. And LeBron is given everything, and the results are less. I don't know. It's crazy that the Lakers franchise can't figure that out, too. And I don't want to talk about Bronny, but like the fact that after everything they've given to LeBron, somehow and LeBron's like done nothing but suck the franchise dry. Somehow he's still in the position to demand to hold them hostage. I don't get it. But you know, I think about, you know, I'm a Warriors fan, or I was a Warriors fan. You know, if they don't get rid of Clay and Draymond, and then someone's talking about Durant, LeBron, and Steph teaming up, I'll burn.
That's crazy.
There's no way. But you know what Rob Broussard said? Broussard said he'd like to see that. So you know how seriously to take him. I'd like to see that. Jesus, shut up. Talk about
this is where we're at.
I'd like to see that. But what I was going to say is that the Clippers, you remember when it was unusual for the Clippers to be better than the Lakers during the Blake Griffin years and the DeAndre Jordan and the Chris Paul years? Hey,
that's right.
They were kicking ass, and what was in their way was those damned Warriors. Well, shit happens, and you have to persevere. That's just like the Bulls and the Pistons. And then the Oklahoma City Thunder, what a squad. And they were on their way to the 2016 finals, and then Steph Curry pulled a miracle out of his ass, and then they blew it up. I mean, what if they'd persevered? Could that squad not have done better the next year? But no, everybody's got to have max contracts and be glorified. But uh, so LeBron, of course, is complaining in the press conference and saying that they had injuries and weren't cohesive. And I was looking at their starting lineups from because he used the stupid in-season tournament as an example. Look what we accomplished during the rigged tournament, which is exactly why these things exist. They're just so people can look back in history and be like, look how good we were, even though it's complete and utter bullshit. But the only difference from their lineups was Cam Reddish. And they hadn't even gotten Dinwiddie or Vincent. And Vincent was always supposed to be in front of Reddish. So they got what they wanted by the end of the season. Wood was coming off the bench. I mean, they have so many goddamn people. I lose track unless I have the roster in front of me. Out of 15 guys, 12 of them you were tempted to have in the rotation. Back then, Gabe Vincent wasn't starting. They actually had Torian Prince as starter, and sometimes Austin Reeves would be getting the start. Hachimura wasn't starting during the in-season tournament. So come the playoffs, they had everybody. They had everybody, except for a couple of guys that weren't necessarily your starters in the first place. They're complaining about not being cohesive with all their bench players when Jamal Murray only played like 50-some games this season. You want to talk about a team that didn't get to be cohesive. I mean, when LeBron, I duck big games, James played more games than Jamal Murray, holy shit. Anthony Davis played more games than Jamal Murray. What team didn't have to persevere through injuries, especially now when I guess the slightest discomfort means people have to fucking sit out? Let me take a break and listen to you rant back.
Well, no, you're right on the money. This is part of the problem with the NBA right now. And this is what we're always alluding to when we talk about these guys being soft, not really having the heart, the grit, the toughness. And once again, making more excuses. It's all about excuses now. Everyone is the victim, even in society. It's not just basketball or, LeBron James. Society's all jacked up. No one wants to take responsibility for anything in their life. Everyone's a victim of something. Oh, God, man, woe is me. My goodness, man. And this is LeBron James, man. You come to the post-game press conference and make it about health. Like you mentioned, there are other teams dealing with injuries. Can someone tell me about the Milwaukee Bucks? Where's Giannis been? Huh? How about that same Jimmy Butler I was talking about? Didn't play any games in the postseason. Has anybody seen Zion Williamson in the postseason this year? No, no one saw him either. All right, so we must understand that there are other teams dealing with injuries. Like you mentioned, Anthony Davis played 76 games this season. Shout out to Anthony Davis. LeBron James fans won't mention that. They'll talk about the injuries and the inconsistency I always talk about on my channel is not due to their health this season. It was due to what? LeBron James' lack of leadership. Where's your leadership at? The team was always in disarray. Think about early in the season. LeBron James wants to bring up the in-season tournament. Okay, let's think about the in-season tournament. They had all the advantages, the pool play, the way the teams were set up, all these things. All right, we get that. But then we take it a step further, man, and you talk about the way they celebrated this thing. It was like they were already done with the NBA season. They already checked out of the NBA season, man. They celebrated it. They went over the top, man. And this is what I'm talking about with lack of leadership. If LeBron James was a true leader, then he would have reeled these guys in. He wouldn't have celebrated it that way. We all know, listen, man, you won the thing, great for you. They had the goggles on. He was drinking out of the cup. What are we doing here? That's part of LeBron James' leadership, man. And that's part of why the Lakers and their inconsistent play, they can never win on the road. I talked about that this season many times. You're not going to win a championship if you can't win on the road. It's insane to me when you think about the Lakers. Other than the bubble season, they never finished in the top 6 seed. Like when you really think about that, the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron James and Anthony Davis never once finished in a top 6 seed other than the bubble season. They never won their division. They were in the play-in every single year, essentially, or they didn't make the playoffs at all. That's crazy, man.
And LeBron James's mentality, the looking for an excuse thing, is, to me, it speaks of an insecurity, and he would rather have someone to blame. like Darvin Ham had his back all year. Darvin Ham has given him compliments because he has to. Obviously, it comes with the contract. But I just I just feel like even if LeBron James had thought Darvin Ham did the best he could possibly do, LeBron would rather let everyone look at Darvin and go ahead and let Darvin take the fall rather than come to his aid or have his back or say, no, this is wrong. As long as people are looking at someone else, he's happy. And that just reeks of insecurity to me. And LeBron James, the way he plays is the opposite of the New York Knicks. That's why it was so refreshing to see them throwing themselves on the ground and not complaining and getting hit and just standing back up and playing. I mean, the opposite of LeBron James. It makes me really sad that that is the guy that so many people look up to. Like you said, it's a reflection on society.
Yeah, no, like you said, if you look at the series coming up right now with the New York Knicks versus the Indiana Pacers, this is like a good old fashioned, wholesome series. Like this, is what you were talking about before. You know, we were saying earlier about the NBA promoting the newer generation, the other talent besides the Lakers and LeBron James. When these guys weren't in, they were in like the 10th seed all season, and every time you turn on the TV, they were talking about the Lakers as if they were going to break the record for all-time wins in the NBA season. These guys were talking about firing Darvin Ham all season, trading players all year, but somehow they're always the headline. So when you think about the Knicks versus the Pacers right now, this is great. Like you said, the team play. The same thing with the Indiana Pacers, man. They're a team play with Halliburton, Miles Turner, Obi Toppin, Nemhard, I think his name is. Some of these other players on the Indiana Pacers, man. So it'll be really good to see that series because there's really, I mean, look at the big name guys that are already gone. Embiid is gone. LeBron James is gone. Steph Curry is gone. Kevin Durant is gone, man. The Jimmy Butlers, you know what I'm saying? Zion Williamson is out of there, right? All these guys are out of the playoffs, man. So some of the younger talent is rising right now.
Yeah, even today, I'm still hearing Anthony Davis being thrown under the bus by some people. And I was thinking about the difference between him and Joel Embiid. And I was watching that elimination game, and it was Maxey, like you said, saving Joel Embiid's ass. And I didn't see LeBron James being a hero. I just saw LeBron James being like, well, they're going to point at him, not doing what he could or, you know, making up for whatever was missing in the fourth. Because, you know, Anthony Davis was carrying him 3/4 of every game, and then they would finally figure out a way to limit Anthony Davis. And all people want to do is look at Anthony Davis couldn't do it all 4 periods. Well, where's that energy when it comes to Joel Embiid? Somehow Joel Embiid is getting a pass when he can't deliver, and someone else was more of the hero than him. He's still going to get less criticism than Anthony Davis, all because Anthony Davis was on LeBron's team, apparently. I mean, it's a curse. Anthony Davis made this bed. He's sleeping in it, and he still wants to sleep in it, apparently, from what I've heard. So I can't feel too bad for him. But it's no matter how you feel about these players, the way that Anthony Davis is being treated by the media compared to Joel Embiid. I mean, isn't Joel Embiid hurt more than Anthony Davis through the course of his career? And yet I've never heard Joel Embiid be given the nickname Street Clothes.
Absolutely, man. You're right on the money. And listen, oftentimes they say that life is stranger than fiction, right? So when we think about LeBron James, the videotape always will expose him. It does not matter what they're saying. And this is why I say to people on my channel, and we talk about these things, we must continue to stand up and the reality, fight against them trying to rewrite the history. When we think about LeBron James in the postseason, and we think about that shot that he had with 15 seconds to go, the defensive play, it fell down. LeBron James behind the three-point line. The score is tied 99-99. Here goes LeBron James. And let's not forget the article that I talked about that said LeBron James at age 39 had become one of the greatest shooters in the NBA at age 39. This is what the article talked about because of LeBron James' three-point percentage that season and all of those kinds of things. And I asked that person who wrote that idiotic article, I asked him, where was that 41% three-point percentage when LeBron James took that shot? You know where it was? It was nowhere to be found, because those are the kinds of things they don't account for when they talk about LeBron James a better 3-point percentage shooter than Michael Jordan. Look at the percentages. Those are the kinds of things they don't take into account, because I guarantee you, if that was Michael Jordan taking that shot at that moment, I'm telling you right now, it's going in. It ain't clanging up like that, because Michael Jordan's going to shoot that with confidence. The problem with LeBron James is that he never shoots those shots with confidence because he knows he can't shoot. And all those percentages, those numbers that his fans hide behind, it gets exposed in the video footage. When you talk about Anthony Davis and the criticism that he receives, it's similar to Dwayne Wade. Once again, we look at Michael Jordan. Look at the impact Michael Jordan has on the plays he played. Scottie Pippen is now being talked about as the greatest player of the 90s. He's the greatest player in the 90s now. Meanwhile, LeBron James' teammate, Dwayne Wade, is basically reduced down to a guy with bad knees. That's who he is. When in reality, 1998, where was Scottie Pippen's back? In 1990, where was the Scottie Pippen migraine? I don't remember Dwayne Wade ever having some meltdowns when LeBron James needed him. In reality, it was the other way around. It was LeBron James who was not there for Dwayne Wade in 2011 when he was going to receive a Finals MVP and another championship. He's the one who shrunk in the moment. So they must reduce all of LeBron James' teammates down to rubble to make him come stand through. Once again, lowering the standard. Michael Jordan's teammates are lifted up so that Michael Jordan is taken down. Once again, holding Michael Jordan to the highest standard in the history of the game.
Look, the playoffs are supposed to be hard. You're supposed to be fighting tooth and nail. It's supposed to be miraculous finish after miraculous finish. And some years it's your year and some years it's not. But in the LeBron James era, it's like it's owed to him to have the win, and it's owed to him for his team to have performed perfectly. Where was he playing hero ball? Because that's the difference. Making that shot, like you mentioned, is the difference. So let's talk about fitness a little bit since I finally have you on here. I feel strongly that these guys resting all the time can't be good for them. I don't, probably the most pain I ever felt was at the beginning of football season every year. And even if you trained ahead of time, you just hadn't trained enough because your muscles weren't used to doing those things. And you didn't think you were going to be able to walk, but you had to go back to practice. And eventually your body adjusted, and then you were okay. And you kept going through the season that way, and you got stronger and stronger despite how impossible it seemed at the beginning. These guys, it seems like, oh, if your muscle is telling you that it's not liking what's happening, maybe you should sit out. And then they come back and then they exert a muscle and like, oh, I'm experiencing discomfort again. Of course you are, because you haven't toughened up your body to be battle worthy. I mean, it's a season. You're a pro athlete. You're supposed to be in battle worthy shape.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I think a lot of these professional athletes, if we really want to call some of these guys professional athletes, I question their mentality, their mind, because I think a lot of this is mental with these guys, man. I don't think it's physical, because oftentimes when we think about the human body, it's very resilient, man. It's a lot tougher than a lot of people want to give it credit for, man. And like you mentioned, the body's going to adapt and adjust to these things, right? So when you're doing something consistently, right, your body's going to adapt to these things. This is why you have to change things up. You have to challenge yourself so that things are differently. So I'll challenge these guys' trainings in the offseason. I don't really think a lot of these guys are actually training. I mean, look at some of these guys, man. They don't really seem like some of the guys that I grew up watching. Those guys actually look, like I said, once again, like grown men. They look like they were tough. Like they were like a piece of metal almost. Like when you dropped them on the floor, they weren't going to break, so to speak. These guys, if you drop them, they'd break, So that's the problem. And I think a lot of it is mental. The guys back in the day, when you think about the difference between an injury and being hurt, a lot of these guys are hurt. So like you said, they'll back off. Oh, wait a second, I'm hurting a little bit. Let me back off. When essentially it's your body adjusting to certain things, and maybe it's not as bad as you think it is. So like you said, I challenge these guys' mindset. Once again, they're getting paid millions of dollars. So there's another thing that they must think about. Sometimes they'll question the fans and their attitude towards some of these guys and how they don't show up to work every single day and they don't have that kind of mindset. So I don't understand where they are, because I don't see how they can have a problem with the everyday person who's paying money to come see these guys or take time out of their day to watch them play, to want you to be out there when you're getting paid all this money. But instead, you watch these guys do commercials, they're doing movies and all this other stuff, but they ain't got no energy on the court.
Yeah, yeah. If I was a coach, I'm certainly my high school coach wouldn't have allowed things like this, like going to a podcast. I'm like, you couldn't play tonight properly, but you have time for a podcast? Hell no, hell no. But like you said, the body is more resilient than some people want to give credit for. They get afraid of the injury, but how many times have you gone down in a game because something hurt like hell, and you're like, oh shit, this might be serious, and then a while later you're running on it again. You'll be okay. There was some pain. Keep playing. I can't believe these guys that in a playoff series are willing to sit out. That are willing to sit out with something that isn't a break or a tear. Keep playing. But like Jamal Murray wanting to play despite possibly aggravating an injury is rare. The fact that that's rare and not the norm is kind of disturbing. But look, the way he was playing, I was actually ready for him not to play. I was like, maybe it'd be helpful. I know he had big shots, but man, he was playing like trash.
Yeah, he's up. No, but listen, I think you're right, man. Oftentimes, when we think about basketball and we have these conversations, we think about the love of the game. And I think sometimes people kind of don't understand what the love of the game means as it relates to the physical body and the pain, the punishment that you're willing to undergo to play the game that you love. And I've always given the example on my channel. I've given it several times about me and my wife, in the conversations that we have oftentimes, because I have a broken bone in my back, in my spine, in one of the links of my spine. And I can either get spinal fusion surgery on this or live with the pain and live under these conditions. And I've chose to live under the conditions. But my wife knows that I love to play basketball. So there's been often times where I'm going to play basketball and she'll tell me, why are you doing this to yourself? You're going to be in so much pain tomorrow morning when you wake up. Your back is going to be on fire. Your ankles are going to be sore. Your feet are going to be hurting. All of these things are going to be hurting. And I tell the same thing every single time. I just love to play basketball. I just love playing it when I'm out there. I love playing basketball. So what does that mean? That means that I'm willing to take the pain, deal with all of this stuff the next day, later on that day. I'm willing to deal with these things because I love the game of basketball. I'm not getting paid to do this. No one's watching me play. There's no cameras out there. I'm literally out there with my friends, sometimes people I don't even know, and we're playing basketball because we like playing basketball. These guys, you don't get the sense that if they were not getting paid, that they would really not be out there. Because what do we see? They must be 100% physically. They must feel really good inside, mentally, to go out there and play the game that they're supposed to love first and foremost. So it makes the people not really want to get behind these guys and be like, yeah, I can respect them like the guys that I grew up watching. I can't do it.
Yeah, and this is where you start to realize how overpaid they are. If if they were earning a basic paycheck and needed to pay the rent, I bet you they wouldn't have these mental illnesses and whatever ridiculous shit keeps athletes from playing now. It's not even physical illnesses now. Now they need emotion days and shit.
Where's Ben Simmons? Where's he at?
He's rich and still getting
exactly
paid.
Robbing the NBA blind.
I'm gonna keep this one short. It was nice to have you on. I'm gonna touch up the end with some stats that I was looking at today, but I want to tell everybody, Sports and Fitness has agreed to appear Wednesday. I'm gonna have a members exclusive live stream, and pay attention to all your comments. Just a members appreciation evening featuring my guest and fellow basketball analyst, Sports and Fitness Rants. Thank you for joining me today. I hope we can do one of these again, and good luck to the Knicks.
Yo, once again, I just want to say I am truly, truly humbled, my man AOH, for having me on the show. I just want to say, man, I've been subscribed to your channel for a long time, man. Since you, like I said, man, for a while, man. And I said, much respect to you, man. You do great work. Thank you for having me on. You guys know me out there. You know Sports and Fitness Rants. You know what it's about on my channel, man. It's all about setting the record straight, man. I had a great time, man. Thank you very much.